Ooh, we're live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to one of your final sessions today in Beyond Borders event. I'm Anthony Petane, the head of product here at Localize, and I'm joined today by Scott Leishman, the chief people officer at Raft AI, for our 30-minute fireside chat. With a kind of a vague title like Product in Glomo, keeping HR and talent at the heart of process, I bet you're kind of wondering what we're going to talk about for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So taking a step back, when designing and building any product, it's always important to keep customers in mind at the center of discovery and delivery processes. But for those tools in the global mobility space, like Localize, it's even more crucial given the inherent complexity and anxiety involved with when people uproot their lives and move to a different city, country, and job. And most of the time, all three at once, actually. So ensuring our product is useful to both the HR team as well as the individual people going through immigration and relocation can be a complex challenge. So over the next 20 minutes or so, Scott will help us dissect this and talk about what the key drivers are for a successful global mobility team like his, and what they look for when picking the right tool. If you've got any questions at all, please post them in the question area in the bottom right of your screens, and we'll have a time for some Q&A at the end. There's also a poll there. And to make sure people are not scared of putting questions in or speaking in the chat, I want everyone to, if you can do, put where you're located and the current temperature. The coldest temperature here gets a shout out. It's very British of me to talk about the weather, especially given the cold snap we're having. So while people are doing that, Scott, can you give us a bit of background on yourself and Raft AI?
Yeah. So hi, everyone. Nice to see you. As Anthony mentioned, I'm Scott Leishman. I head up the people function at Raft. Raft, we've just recently rebranded from Vector AI. So if you've seen that brand before, we changed about 5 weeks ago. So that's been a big change for us. So again, apologies if I mentioned Vector rather than Raft. I'm still getting used to it. But at Raft, we automate freight forwarding. So anything that you order from around the world that gets to you from China, wherever, we are making automation software for the freight forwarders to be able to provide services to them to speed up, improve, reduce the carbon footprint of sending goods around the world. We are about 100 people now, with an office in India, an office in London, and an office in Chicago in the US, and growing every week currently. And so it's really exciting times. It's a pretty complex thing that we're trying to solve, and a lot of moving parts, which means that we need really sort of experienced, knowledgeable people, which is why we need to start looking every part of the globe to find those people, basically.
Thank you. I think we've got a bit of a draw. We've got Rita and Martin, 3 degrees in Dusseldorf and Berlin. I think that's pretty cold. So obviously you mentioned like you've got different offices at Raft AI, and you've been involved in global mobility your well, not your whole career, but a big part of your career. Why is it so important to you personally, like global mobility in general?
So for me, it's really diversity, diversity of thought. As I said, what we're trying to solve specifically here at Raft and at other companies where I've worked, people have different views and different understanding of how to solve things. So for us, being able to access talent with that diverse thought is something that's really important. And that's why, for me, being able to cross borders, bring talent, and bring them onto to the companies I've worked for is really important.
And obviously, with rebranding for like a couple of weeks ago, and Raft really growing quite a lot. I suppose I mentioned that like growing quite a lot over the last few months. Why is it so important for like a scaling startup like yourselves to hire across those borders in terms of the talent?
So talent itself, so I previously worked for other companies as well. So one of them was Skype. As we were growing at Skype back in 2010, we were hiring about 25 people per week who were joining the team at our kind of peak time. We were hiring specialists, people with H.264 codec, with noise cancellation experience, and they're not all just sitting in London waiting for us to hire them. So we have to go and find them from all over the world with those specialist skills, and then either relocate them or find ways to employ them locally, so we can get that knowledge into the company and help us solve the challenging problems that we face on a day-to-day basis.
With the freight forwarding, where are you kind of looking to hire it right now? Like obviously you mentioned you got offices in London, in India. in Chicago. Like, where are you looking to hire people from and move into those locations right now at Raft?
So from everywhere. I mean, Freight is a global business, which means that the knowledge base is globally located. We're looking at hiring people from Asia, from Europe, from places like Amsterdam, where there's a huge amount of talent. I think mostly, or the Netherlands in general, because of Rotterdam and the ports there. Also, the UAE, there's a lot of knowledge and experience for companies within the freight forwarding space there. So yeah, it's really every single corner of the globe we're looking at to bring in the knowledge that we want and the knowledge that we believe will help us fix the global freight forwarding challenges and get our software solution to, I guess, its peak performance.
Definitely. And I mean, moving so many people across borders into different borders as well, like it must be pretty hard choosing a global mobility vendor. Like for you, like, what are the most important things you are looking for when you looking to pick a tool, and why you pick localized, I suppose, as well?
Yeah, so the two main things really are, I guess, return on investment, so cost per case. Previously, depending on which location we work for, we've had to work with lawyers. And lawyers are, one, expensive, and two, not automated. So it takes time to chase them. They're also busy. So definitely kind of spending less per case to maximize the ROI that we get out of it is one. But also it's really important to keep up to date with changes, what's happening with the laws. We've had various things that have happened with the Ukraine war, changes to rules on a regular basis in the UK and in different countries. So not being able to find one lawyer who has all of that experience for the different countries is never easy. So having a portal or a service provider that can give you regular updates, they understand what's happening, they know the challenges, because they're dealing with not just us, but with significant other startups that are going through the same problems, is really kind of what helped us find you and then decide that you were the right partner that we wanted to partner with going forward. Also, the ability to scale as we're going to scale, making sure that your team are scaling too, and working with you to feedback into the product and continue to help you produce a product that's great for us.
Nice. You mentioned obviously cost per case and the automation. One of the key metrics that we've been looking for, and we've kind of got two different sides to the platform, right? We've got the HR side and we've got the employee side, and employee satisfaction. I think we've seen and like CSAT and employee satisfaction has been a key metric that we want to track here at Localize. Is that an important metric for you in terms of like focusing on the talent experience and the employee experience and global mobility?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. There's a number of reasons for that, really. First and foremost, it's one of the most stressful things to ever do, is to relocate across borders, across country. The challenges that people face are huge. I think actually they said it's like the third most challenging thing to deal with, other than death and divorce, I think, is that regularly. So with that in mind, making it as easy as a process as possible, taking the stress out of it, is really important for the candidate. I think also moving to new countries, there is a significant number of challenges in different countries, whether it's getting all of the right paperwork set up, getting the right access to medical services, finding a place to rent. There's some challenges in different countries with that as well. So if we can take away all of that stress, that allows them to significantly focus more on getting up to speed. And one of the key metrics we track is basically their time to productivity. And by tracking time to productivity, it allows us to see how much impact us making their relocation smoother has on the business itself, because they don't need to think about or do the other things that they may need to do on a day-to-day basis just to get settled into a new country.
And you track that today?
And we track that today.
How do you track it for the people watching?
So a number of different factors. So through our performance management tool and through our 30, 60, 90-day onboarding process, is to see which milestones they've hit, how they're there, how up to speed they are with the product. So that's, those metrics through that we use to then see how productive people are being. We also look at retention as well. So how many people pass their probation periods, that type of stuff all go into managing that metric.
You mentioned retention. That's an interesting one, because I've heard stories about bad relocation experiences impacting employee retention, both from the perspective of not passing probation, but also the stress and wanting to go back home. Have you seen that's the case, or even the inverse, like good relocation increases retention?
Yeah, exactly. They definitely have seen it. I mean, thankfully, the companies that I've worked with and the organizations, we've had reasonably good setups, and we've tried to do our best. We've had things like buddy programs that we run. So when someone relocates, not only do they have a work buddy who helps them get to that productivity space that I told you about, but we also have then social buddies. So someone who might have similar interests or might want to basically help them with all of the things they need to do, the questions that they have, go out for dinner and help them settle in. So those buddy programs, I think, help a lot with some of those challenges, out with of just having a service provider like Localize. But I do have a few sort of some good stories, a couple that can kind of come to mind. One, we relocated someone to Stockholm. And his productivity at the time wasn't as good as we would expect. So we sat him down and we were trying to work out what the issue was, and it turned out that he hadn't been able to find a place to rent in Stockholm. I don't know what it's like now, but certainly before, it used to be pretty well known that it was a challenge for someone outside of Sweden to try and find somewhere. So he had decided that he would stay in a hostel boat on the river. And this was around Christmas time, so it was around this time of year. And he was, I think, not getting any sleep at all because people were just partying all through the night. And then when we finally, and he didn't even ask for help, he didn't say there was an issue. And when we finally kind of asked him what was up and how it was going, that's when we found out that he was staying in this like party boat and wasn't getting any sleep. So we then found a solution and helped him. And then another case, we had a person relocate to Estonia, to Tallinn, and then their first evening in their hotel slipped and slit their arm from the top to the bottom on the shower case. So we then thankfully had someone able to go around and help them to hospital because they hadn't registered for the health service or anything yet. So yeah, again, a couple of interesting stories, but for the most part of the companies that I've worked for, which are Skype, Microsoft, Google, etc., we've always had very good relocation setups and very good support and buddies to make them feel welcome and to allow them to settle in. So yeah, no super big disasters, but it definitely is a massive thing for people. As I mentioned, the stress earlier, but the homesickness or feeling, if they feel that it's too much strain or stress, then they're definitely going to miss home more and more likely to decide that the move was the wrong move and they should look to move back.
I've got lots of questions about the party boat, but I'll leave those for next time we go to the pub. But like, so for people on the call here who potentially haven't got a buddy system set up on HR professionals, what would be the first step that you would do as the CPO or chief people officer to start that program or start that social buddy program?
So I guess it's what I've always done is obviously know the team, use your HRS to capture kind of things that people are interested in. That way you can then spot any interest from other people that are joining, whether it's badminton clubs or whatever, trying to create a social element within those offices. And then that way you can then allocate your buddies from there. I think for some people, they're maybe moving to a small office and there's not a huge number of people, and maybe there isn't clubs. But then it's just about kind of understanding or identifying one person who really is interested in doing it. It doesn't necessarily need to be an HR professional, but I've had people in my teams over the years who are just really interested in helping with people settling in and onboarding, and just have them. So in our when at Skype in all of our offices, we had a sort of local head of our people in terms of culture. They were not all within my team. Some of them were senior people within the organization. Others were just people that put themselves forward as a recommendation to help run that program in country, and then make sure that they could identify and find ways for them to settle in better. But just the real key to it is understanding the people you're hiring, understanding the people you have, and then finding a good way to make the introductions and to make sure that they are looking after and helping people get there. If they're joining their team, it's going to be beneficial to them, but and as a whole, it's a great way to get to meet new people.
And from your experience, you mentioned like all this stress and obviously the social element is really important. For the employees relocating, what have you found has been like the key stress driver, if that's even a term? Like what part of the relocation process and the many different things, and immigration, housing, banking, what is the thing that has caused your employees the most stress?
So I think for the most part, immigration is okay. I don't think that's a hugely stressful thing unless there's challenges with the country that they're coming from, or things that to do with war, or some of the challenges that we're facing today. It's definitely more the settling in. It's understanding how to go about the day to day, as how to set up a bank, where to find housing. In some locations like Stockholm, as I mentioned, it's difficult. London is becoming increasingly difficult at the moment, with the costs, with everything that's going on here. So those are the more sort of key drivers, is that initial getting set up. We've relocated probably 7 or 8 people in the last 6 months to London, and we have the buddy system all set up. But we also have like a one-pager that we use on Notion that has links to every single thing possible that they would ever need, how to register to get a travel card, what you need to do to set up a bank. These are the banks that are easiest to do. So we have a guide internally that people will help. But of course, we have a team of people that are also happy to sit down and go through with them. Our London office manager does all of those things and helps with applications as well. But that's the biggest bit, is getting that initial setup, and being able to live their life, travel, commute, find somewhere to live, being able to pay for things, etc.
The commute in London is something that I definitely don't miss. So like working from home is a great thing there. Taking a separate tack here, obviously part of Localize's tool is having a product that caters to both HR and the employee, like both those two sides of the coin, I suppose, parts of the relocation team, I suppose. And what have you kind of used before, and what have you seen? What advantage do you see to having a tool that does both of those things, hopefully quite well, in the global mobility space?
And the advantage is that it's all centralized, and both parties. Even today, I was processing a COS, so a relocation visa, and everything, communication has all gone through the platform. I can see the updates, they can see the updates. We all know what tasks are due, when they're due, who's due to do them, and both people and both ends can see that. So I think that's a big advantage. Previously, it's all been via email with lawyers. They email you, it gets lost in my inbox. I get a million sales emails trying to sell me things like Localize and other SaaS products for the people function. So I might miss an email, and then that delays the process. So just knowing, and the notification element of this is what's required, this is what you need to do, I think works really well. Also, from a candidate standpoint, and we've relocated someone from the US recently who's our chief growth officer, so really senior person, and his experience of the platform was also really great. It worked super, it was easy for him, he could see everything, he knew what was happening, and then him having to relocate family and wife, etc., across from the US just took away the stress, because he knew it was happening, he knew what he needed. It gave him plenty of time to go and sort the right types of paperwork. So he had a really good experience, and it's just great to have it in one platform.
And I suppose relocating one of the senior execs, taking that pressure off your team, is probably quite a big thing as well. With how big is your team right now?
So my team is only 3, so it's a pretty small team for 100 people. But yeah, so we are really stretched. But then, as I said, I try and build my teams in a scalable manner, using software as best we can, to be able to provide the services that we want, which is why, again, we went with Localize.
Yeah, trying to save the time, the valuable time of your team as much as we possibly can.
Exactly. Our product that we're building at Raft is 100% doing exactly the same thing for the freight industry and for the shipping industry. We know the benefits because we're building some of the products ourselves.
Nice. And you're helping us build a product here at Localize, right? You're part of our product advisory board, which we spun up again in Q4. And so if you can kind of talk about kind of the benefits of being part of advisory boards, obviously not just Localize's ones, but have you been on other advisory boards in the HR space across the industry?
Yeah, I've been in many advisory boards, whether it be for HRISs, for benefits platforms, across the people spectrum. The benefit, I guess, is twofold. One is, again, we're building a SaaS product here. A lot of the companies that I've worked for have been building a SaaS product, and you really need to listen to the voice of the customer. And that's key to building the right things. So I like to be that voice, and I like to be able to give you feedback on what's working, what's not working. And of course, the benefit of being on an advisory board is that you get to push some of the things you request maybe nearer the top of the product roadmap, which is definitely something that I enjoy doing. So yeah, and I've sat on many as that I mentioned, and again, all with the same outcome, which is I want to provide my experience, the challenges that I've faced, to be able to try and get as many of these software solutions and SaaS products working in a way that's going to work for people. I think the second benefit is the network that you make. So meeting other people like-minded who have challenges. It may be that there is something that you guys don't do yet, but other people have found suitable ways to get around it or to work on it as an interim solution while you continue to build out your platform. So being able to pick their brains and just ask them and say, what are you doing in the short term, means that it can take away some of the stress of us trying to navigate those challenges as well. So I think that's another real big benefit of being part of these boards. I've sat in ones that aren't relevant to HR as well. And I just really enjoy passing on my knowledge, experience of software and technology from the companies that I've worked at.
Cool. Before I ask my last question, I'll just say if anyone does have any questions, please post them in the chat. We plan 10 minutes of questions, so if no one has any questions, we can wrap up early for the next session. But do post any questions if you have for either myself or for Scott. Okay, so the final question then, Scott, obviously you're part of our advisory board, and you kind of mentioning about the kind of the value that our tool needs to drive for you. If you would like to see, now a question for me, if you'd like to see my team develop something for you guys over the next 6 months, what would you like us to do?
So I think from my standpoint, where we're at as a business, and most of the stuff that we use your tool for works really well. So there isn't one thing that kind of jumps out. I know that we are about to start traveling a lot. So I'm off to India, to the office. There will be more travel to Chicago later in the year. So I guess from my standpoint, an easier way to manage any visas that I need through to do traveling from a visitor standpoint through the platform would be something that would be super useful. And then I think longer term, when I kind of look at it, it's just providing a much wider support and services to the people that have relocated. So the Notion page that I talked about, I know some of those services are coming and you are adding more, but just more countries, more options to be able to provide that support is really key. Because if it's all in one place, again, rather than in our Notion page, then they can start looking at it and planning it before they're even here. We do share our Notion page with employees when they accept, so that they have access to all of this data so they can pre-plan and come. But it would just be much easier if it was all built in to that. They can select the housing provider, someone to search them, they can look at what's the best banks. All of those basically services that I mentioned are the key stresses when people are relocating. Cool,
thank you. We didn't get any questions, so I think we can wrap up a little early. I know the next session starts bang on 1:30. Is there anything you want to ask me, Scott, or should we kind of wrap up now?
No, I mean, I think from my side, we obviously spent a significant amount of time together recently. We chatted about a number of these areas, so I don't have any questions for today. I hope everyone that was on this call felt it useful. If anyone does want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm always happy to help and support people as well. So any questions or that you didn't get a chance to ask today, then please go through those channels. And yeah, I'm always happy to share my experiences, which I guess having relocated probably now, I'd say 2,000 to 3,000 people. It's over the years, I've come across most and I've seen a lot of them. So yeah, thank you to everyone for joining, and hopefully it was worthwhile.
Nice. Thank you too, Scott. Thank you very much. And thank you for everyone for listening. The next session is starting at 12:30, which is Global Mobility and Immigration in 2023, with Reese Proctor from Personio, Colette Slowett from Utrium, Sherry Martin, formerly from Slack, Twitter, and Google, and Rebecca Kelly from Intercom. So thank you everyone for joining, and hopefully I'll speak to everyone soon.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.